What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, you are watching TWA Motorsports, and today this thing is coming out of here. You can see I've already got my engine plate on there, so all we have left to do is we've got three, I believe they're 15 millimeter, actually they may be smaller than that. You can see one there, one in the middle, one on the back side, and we're going to take those out on both sides. The other thing I'm going to do is I am going to put a jack under there just to make sure that my transmission doesn't fall on the front side, because that's going to be a lot riding on a transmission mount. I'm afraid the trans will just fall out and drag everything with it. So let's get the 15 millimeters out. So the goal here today is I actually have a converter. I've decided to put a converter. Oh, I need to turn the light off here. I've decided to put a converter in this thing, just a small one, like a 2600 stall, I believe. So the goal is to get the motor out, get the old converter out, fill the new fill the new converter, and then possibly get the new motor in this thing. But we'll see where we get. I'm going to start though by getting those bolts out, getting something to prop up that transmission down there, and I'm gonna get my cherry picker over here. So on one side, I was able to get those three 15 millimeters out. On this side, this plate, this like heat shield, is too thick. So I got the center one out, but then what I did is there's two through bolts that come in from the back. You can see them setting up here. They're ridiculously long. Look how long those things are. So I took those out. And so it's loose, just sitting there. So I'm gonna go grab my cherry picker and let's see what happens. I've got the jack under the transmission. I think we're good there. I may take those are 18 millimeters, by the way, those big long ones. I may go ahead and take them out of this side as well. May improve my situation when we're starting to lift this thing. I don't know. Got it all hooked up, started to lift it. Transmission is just really hanging up on the dowels. I got under the driver's side here and got most of it pried apart, but there's no good place to pry on the passenger side to get it loose. So we'll just keep working it back and forth. It'll eventually come loose. It's been on there for a while, you know? It wants to hang on. I don't have any kind of separation over here, it doesn't look like. Pretty close here. Well, we're unhooked. I'm gonna go ahead. So I took a hammer and knocked these ears down. You could trim them off or just knock them down a little bit. I don't know why they're so long. But anyway, we're free from the transmission, as you can see. And it is leaking crap everywhere, which is gonna make me bananas, but I gotta deal with it. Looking pretty good. I think we're going to be able to come straight out, especially once I get this off. I can come a little further over this way and get away from the heater core lines. We're pretty close to those, and they're pretty brittle on the firewall. But let's get these two 15s out. I'll grab this piece out of the way. That'll give me more leeway to move back and forth. Now I'm going to go ahead, take my motor mounts loose. They actually look great. Those are 15 millimeters. I'm also going to take the flywheel off because I'm going to need that as well. I think those are 15 also, just to make my life a little easier while we've got it this far up in the air. And then we're going to set it on a tire, and then we are going to move on. Probably some cleaning off camera. I think I'm going to go ahead, we're going to move to the motor next, but I'm going to probably have to end up climbing in there, pulling that old one out, pouring a little bit of fluid in the new one and putting that in, but we'll see if we get to that. But in the meantime, I want to go ahead and get our engine out here, get everything basically assembled on it. That is the goal. And then it ready to actually stab into this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, move some of this stuff around. We'll get the engine over here. I'm going to put a new rear cover on it. I'm going to put a new timing chain cover, probably a new oil pump. But let's get that thing over here. Let's see if we can get some parts off of it. So not that long ago, I actually came out here off camera and cleaned this old LS1 engine up. It just had some junk on it from, you know, leaks around the seal here that you can obviously see. The front timing cover, the oil pan. There was a couple spots where it was leaking, but this thing actually has a set of PRC heads on it, which should help in the amount of power that this thing makes. But since we've got most of this disassembled, we don't have a lot to do. But I'm going to go ahead and take the 10 millimeters out of the oil or the coolant passover, because the one on the truck's a little different. So we'll take these 10s out, and then I'm going to take these guys out, which should also be 10s, and get the front timing cover off. That'll give us a good look at what we're dealing with inside. I did clean that with a little razor blade. But now that we've got the front timing cover loose, let's see if we can knock it off. Remember, it has two, oh man, it's clean. It's got 2 bolts that come in from the bottom. This is an aftermarket pump, and the chain looks good, guys. I am not going to replace any of this other than the camshaft. So with that being said, well, I take that back. I'm going to have to replace the pickup tube because we're going to be running a different oil pan. But yeah, this thing looks like it's in great shape. Let's get this gasket off. Holy cow, it's coming apart. So let's go ahead and we'll take the heads off next, and we'll go ahead and pull the rocker arms loose, pull the push rods out, and then we'll probably use the dowel method to do the cam swapping. 8mm to take the valve covers off, and like I said, I already cleaned those up a little bit, but we're going to use the truck ones. I don't know if they're different, I can't remember, but let's get those 8mm out. Once we got those out of the way, you can see we've got some gasket material to clean up here on the valve covers. We'll be putting new valve covers on, but let's go ahead and loosen up all 8mm. Now, the plan is to leave these in place and just kind of swing them over and pull the push rod out, so I don't have to like find a place to put these. But look, these are, looks like they were a 241 head possibly that have been changed over, I guess, or sent off the PRC. That's what they generally do, is they take a set of stock castings and do their work on them. Like I said, once we get them loose, you should be able to swing them over, and we'll just pull the push rod out. These are 740 Texas Speeds, which this guy did say he bought all his stuff from Texas Speed. I'm kind of interested to see what camshaft this is. He didn't know anything about it. Now that we got all the push rods out, let's get these 3 10mm bolts on the front side of the cam here. Let's get that out of the way. Once we do that, we should be able to walk this guy back. Holy cow, that sucker is on there, guys. I have to use 2 hands to do this, but should walk it off this dowel here. You can see we got it out of the way. It's a Rollmaster. It's, like I said, it's a decent product. All right, let's get the 10mm that hold the cam retainer plate in, but that's where we need to stop until we get our wooden dowels in. Now, here's why I said that. First of all, we're going to replace this. You always want to replace that front seal anytime you take it out, but I want to roll this thing around. I want to get those lifters up in the trays, but at the same time I'm doing that, so I'll have to put the camera down, we're going to be shoving these dowels in here. And what that does is, the way the lifter is shaped, it keeps that lifter pinned up out of the way. Now, because I'm on an engine stand, the other option I could do is I could flip this thing upside down, but if we were doing it in the truck, this is the method if you are not pulling heads. So you can see I'm all the way to the back, which means I'm up against that rear post, or the rear cover. So we're going to do the same here. I just keep rolling it around, making sure that they're where they need to be. You're going to have some resistance here. These are just wooden dowels from a local hardware store. Once we do that, now I've got 2 of the water pump bolts. I'm going to use 2 hands, and we're going to walk this cam out. Got that thing out of there. It is a Texas Speed, what is it? 224, 600 on a 112. So a pretty good cam, to be honest with you. I think I'll be able to sell that and recoup some money. But like I said, all this cam's power is going to be made up top. And in a big SUV, that's not really what we want. So we're still going to go with the BTR Truck Norris that I've got sitting there. The good thing is, like, I don't have to change much. I don't have to change the springs because these are for a higher lift spring. And I don't have to change oil pump or normally I would change the pump, guys. I would change the chain. But now that we've got that out, let's open up our BTR cam, take a look at it. We got the BTR cam opened up, comes with a couple stickers. And all right, this one is a 212 and 220X. I guess they don't want to give the info there. It is on a 106.5 lobe separation angle. That's why it's so choppy. And then lift is 553. So look, this one's going to be really rowdy sounding, more so than the Texas Speed one there, but it makes lower end torque, which, like I said, will be good for this. I think it'll be really nice with the LS have an additional displacement. But before I put any cam in, guys, I know they're cleaned before they leave in their package, but there always is metal burrs on them. So I'll get a couple paper towels, we'll stand it up here, and I'm gonna clean it off really, really well with some brake clean, just to make sure. And then I flip it upside down. I do it a couple times. And then we will go grab our assembly lube and we will get this thing slid into place. Got it all cleaned up. Got the water pump bolts moved over to it. And now we're ready to put, I generally use Melling assembly lube. Guys, I really coat it up, especially on the cam bearing journals, the actual lobes themselves. I'll try to put it in a little bit and then show you kind of how much I'm putting on it. But yeah, use this pretty liberally. You can see I use quite a bit on that. So I've got it started. That's what I put on back there. And then I will smear that around by hand, kind of cleaning this up. We'll go all the way out here just like that. And then I like to roll the cam around a little bit. Then we can remove the dowels once the cam's already in. Want to make sure we're going in as straight as possible. Go slow. Don't nick up your cam bearing journals, which are really easy to do. Once it passes through one, the cam wants to drop. Try to keep it as straight as possible. Once we have that cam in, we want to make sure that it's turning, and it's turning with a little resistance because it's got so much assembly lube on it, which is perfect. Now we can pull our dowels out. We are finished with them. However, be very careful not to pull your cam out now, okay? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the time with the razor blade. I'm going to clean up, see where that old gasket came off. You always want to replace this, always. Do not skimp here. I got this all cleaned up, and you'll notice that, like, I always replace these, okay? There's a seal here, and it flattens out. So the downside is you have to get new bolts because you can see how these bolt holes are recessed, and I've got 4 new bolts down here. And so I always replace this because if this seal goes bad, you're gonna have really low oil pressure, if any at all. But what we want to do is let's get those up there. Let's get the new GM bolts started. I'll list all this stuff in the description down below, but let's get the cam retainer in place. I believe these are T40s, or a T40 plus, some people say. They have thread locker on them, so you don't have to worry about it. If you order them from GM, they come with thread locker already on them. But what I like to do is I like to run them down by hand, and I want to make sure that they kind of center themselves up. Okay, because here's what else will happen. If you get them off, because this thing can move like up and down and side to side, but if they're off, you will crack this plate and then you'll wonder why you have bad oil pressure. So just take your time here, and then I will grab the torque specs for this. I think it's 18, but I need to double check. Let's go ahead and torque this to 18 foot-pounds. I was right. Next thing we need to try to do is spin this guy around and get our timing mark facing up. There's a timing mark on the crank gear down here, and I don't see it yet. I'll try to get it rolled around so you guys can see it. The chain's not a big deal. You can just let it fall. It's going to move around anyway, but let's put this bolt in. Let's turn this thing over and see if we can get that timing mark pointing up. Normally there's a big dot, but this one says 0 because it's a Rollmaster, and then it says -2 on the next cam and +2 going the other way. So I've got it on the 0. The 0 is pointing straight up, basically at the center of the camshaft. We'll roll this around and double check it, but now we need to grab our timing gear, or our cam gear, and put it on the cam, and then we're going to orient that dot on the bottom with the dot on the crank gear. This part takes a little time, but you can see the dot on the bottom we have here. I've got the dowel lined up, and I've got the old bolt started. That's not what we're going to be using, but what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to rotate the motor around a couple times. We're going to make sure that the 0 still lines up with the rest. So when this goes, the 0 should be at the very top, and this is at the very top. And it is. Yep. And we're going to rotate it again, and we're just going to make sure that those timing marks intersect at the direct up and down. So basically dot to dot is what we are doing, and it looks good. Once we've rolled that around a couple times, I'm going to put the new cam bolts in, which are from ARP. So I'm gonna back these off. We're gonna put a little bit of the ARP Ultra Torque on the threads and a little under the head here so we get a proper torque. And they get torqued to 25 foot-pounds per the instructions that come with them. Now that we got that torqued down to 25 foot-pounds, everything is finished up here, obviously other than putting the timing cover back on. So we're gonna move back to dropping our push rods back in. Just make sure that they go in where they're supposed to. We'll move the rocker arm back into place as we go. These things are in really good shape, so we're gonna keep them. Hopefully the base circle on the Truck Norris cam is the same. It should be, since these are factory size push rods, 740s. After we do this, I'm gonna go ahead and start snugging these down. They torque to 22 foot-pounds, but generally I'll make a couple passes before I snug them down. And then sometimes, since the motor's out, I will roll the engine around and get it on the heel of the cam before I torque them down. But let's see if they will go ahead and snug down. Now that we got all that fixed, I got all these torqued to 22. I rolled the engine around several times, double checked the torque on them. Everything's moving. We're not jamming up anywhere. It's a good sign. So now's the fun part. Cam's gonna have to help me hold the motor because I'm going to lift it. I'm gonna get my lift plate in place up top here. So with the 6 bolts, you'll see it here in a minute. And then we're gonna lift it up off the cherry picker because I wanna go ahead and do a rear main. And honestly, guys, what I may do before I do that actually is go ahead and take all the 10 millimeters out of the oil pan and get it off. I don't know, we'll see. I may just loosen them. And the reason I say that is I may go ahead and keep the oil pan in place. Yeah, let's keep the oil pan in place for now, but let's pry this out of here. Sometimes you gotta pry it because these rubber seals stay. Once we got it up in the air, we're gonna do a couple things. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the flywheel off that I used for the locking tool when I was disassembling this thing. So 15 millimeters, take the flywheel off. This, I don't believe, is the correct flywheel. We're gonna be using the truck one. Make sure you do that. So let's get those out of the way. And then I'm gonna take the two 10 millimeters out of the rear of the oil pan, and then we will work on the 10 millimeters for the rear main. Once we got all the flywheel bolts out and all the bolts out of the rear cover, sometimes it's kind of stingy coming off. Oh, it came off pretty easy. Is it easier with the oil pan off? Probably. Oh, baby. Got it. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this time to clean all this stuff. No, I am not going to replace that, by the way. I'm going to grab... Oh, I'd really, really like to have the oil pan off. I don't know. It's not 100% necessary. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to clean this, and then we may end up taking the oil pan off to get the rear main where I want it, but it's not required. Once we've got everything scraped and cleaned, I left the oil pan on. So you're supposed to line these up with the oil pan in place anyway. I don't know. I don't love doing it that way. I bought a completely new timing cover, which instead of 10 millimeters, these are 13, but it comes with the seal, the rear cover, and the gasket all as one. Guys, this is the best way to buy this thing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some of these bolts started. As a matter of fact, I can do this. Come here and hold the camera. Should be able to do this while we're going together here. So this lines up in the center there. And then we can start some of our bolts. And this ensures that you're getting a nice square fitment. And so what will happen is this will push out as we start to drag these bolts in. The center will push out, you know it's nice and square. I don't have the rear alignment tool. I've got the front one, but I don't have the rear one. So we'll just start threading these bolts in and we should be good to go. Now that we got this all snug down, you can see the center pops out when you're getting close to finished. We need to torque these to 18 foot-pounds. Now I generally like to do this in an alternating fashion. May start here, go to the top, go over here, go down here, and just kind of a crisscross pattern. At this point, we got those all torqued to 18. I'm gonna go ahead with the flywheel. Look, it only goes on one way, and I am using the original flywheel for the Tahoe engine side. They make it pretty dummy proof, but you can generally tell by where your old bolts were. I'm just using the stock bolts on this. I am going to clean them off, but I'm going to use a little Loctite, blue Loctite on these when they're going back in. Once we got them in, make sure you align this opening with the opening on the back of the crank. I think that's for counterweight purposes, but we need to go 37, 54, and then 74, I believe, but 74 being the last in a crisscross pattern. Flywheel is all torqued down, cleaned up, new rear main. Exciting. So now, probably gonna make a mess, but I'm gonna roll this thing over and we're gonna work on getting the oil pan off, scraping all the gasket material off of it next. Well, we made a little bit of a mess, but I got all the bolts out. So let's lift this thing off there, get it set to the side. Now, because the pan's shaped different between the F-body and the truck, we're gonna have to switch pickup tube, windage tray, and we'll pull the oil pump apart right here. So these are all 10, well, that's a 10 millimeter. These will be 13s. We'll take the 13 off here. I don't think it, no, it doesn't clip there, I don't believe. Does it? No, it doesn't. 10 millimeter, 13, we'll get the pickup tube out of the way, and then all the rest of the 13s to get the windage tray out. Got the old windage tray off. Got the new one, the cleaned one, let's say. It's ready to go. Let's go ahead. Well, I'll probably grab the pickup tube so I know which ones go, but I need to go grab my 13 millimeters. At least start. I know the back two, possibly the front two. Go ahead and get those started at least. This next part's pretty important. You need to make sure that you use the correct O-ring. Mine was orange, and so it says to use a green if yours was orange. So we'll get it on there. Make sure, the great thing about doing it this way, guys, is you get a pretty positive fitment in the pump when you're putting it together, when you're using one like this, or when you've got it apart like this. Once we got everything seated, I'd started that bolt. I got to look up the torque spec on that, but these are 18 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and torque the windage tray to 18. 106 inch-pounds on this guy. Then I'm going to, off camera, use the scraper. We'll scrape all the old gasket material off all the way around, trying to keep it on the outside of the motor, by the way. And then we'll wipe it down real good with brake clean. We'll go grab our new pan, well, our old pan that's cleaned up. Got all the gasket material cleaned off on the where the oil pan mates, and I actually did the front cover too because I think we're gonna do it first. I've cleaned the front cover. I took this to the machine shop, he cleaned it. Got a new GM front cover gasket, a new seal. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this up in here and we're gonna make sure that it's flush in the corners. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna use my alignment tool. But I'll get it up in place. Let me get the gasket on it, get some bolts started, and then we're gonna put this in the middle and we can go ahead and snug it down once it is square up front. Now, one of the other tools that I have here is an oil pan simulator. It's a flat piece of steel. And so what we'll do is we'll get this seated. We'll use our alignment tool in the middle. And then once we get to this point, we'll thread those two bolts in to simulate the oil pump, or the oil pan. These tools come in super handy. So does the center one. If you don't center this, you will have a leak behind your harmonic balancer, and you don't want that. Look how much movement that thing has. It's a lot. Now with both tools cinched down, now you could use the oil pan here. And this guy in the middle, we are ready to snug these down to 18. Also going to do this in like a crossed pattern. Once those are torqued, it's nice and flat right here, which is nice. Pull our tool out, and this actually acts as an installer too. So we've got that out of there. We're going to grab our new seal. We're going to flip this around. We're going to use that to drive it in. Makes it really easy. After a lot of cleaning off camera, we're ready to put silicone in the openings between the back and the front covers. Okay, so these little openings here, you always want to put silicone there. And then I've got the pan cleaned. We're ready to go grab a gasket. Started on there. I've got all my bolts cleaned up. I've been letting my bolts soak in the simple green there and then just scrubbing them with a brush, and man, it's working really well. Got that idea from a buddy of mine. So let's see. I'll put 2 little silicone patches, or 4 little silicone patches in. I'll show you guys that, and then we're going to grab the brand new GM gasket, see if we can set it on there, get it all lined up. Got the new GM pan gasket on. I like to use GM stuff, guys. You also notice I put these on. I just lightly put them on. I need to torque them down, the motor mounts, but you can see in the 4 corners I have silicone. My silicone thing quit. I had to spread that out with a another like a stick that I had out here. It just wasn't, I don't know, silicone dries up after a while and it just doesn't want to come out. So anyway, we're ready to put this pan on. I've got all the bolts pushed through there, and so what I'm hoping is the bolts catch first. I've pushed them all the way through, and that also helps hold the gasket in place because I'm not going to re-rivet it like the factory did. But if I'm thinking right, this will hit first, and then we can drag it down instead of it just falling into place. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it's not too heavy anyway. We're going to set it up here and see. That worked like a charm. I'm going to go ahead and start torquing these to 18 foot-pounds, starting in the middle and working my way out. So crisscross, just like I would do a head. And then I think these are 106 back here, but I can't remember. We'll get those last. Got it all snugged up. You can see we got a nice amount of squish out. We're going to leave that. We're going to leave it. As much as I want to wipe it off, we're leaving it. But anyway, 106 on these back ones. So I'm going to go ahead and snug that down. Then we can roll this thing back over.